Good afternoon. May I welcome everyone to the 12th meeting in 2020 of the Delegated Powers and Law Reform Committee. We have apologies today from two of our members, Mary Fee and Gil Patterson. The first item on our agenda is a declaration of interests, and I welcome Tom Arthur to the committee. In accordance with Section 3 of the Code of Conduct, I invite Tom Arthur to declare any interests relevant to the remit of the committee.
Thank you, Convener. I have no relevant interest to declare.
Thank you. Under agenda item 2, we are considering instruments subject to the affirmative procedure. Firstly, members will have been sent a revised agenda earlier today, which includes an additional instrument, the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions Scotland Amendment Regulations 2020, being SSI 2020-106. This has been laid to correct drafting points identified by the committee's legal advisors within the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions Scotland Regulations 2020, SSI 2020-103. Our advisors are satisfied that the amending instrument corrects the problems and therefore no points are raised on either instrument. Do members have any comments on these instruments?
Convener, on the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions Scotland Regulations 2020, that's SSI 2020-103. Paragraph 8.4 provides for the defence of reasonable excuse, and subparagraph 8.5 includes the need at D to provide care or assistance to a vulnerable person, including to provide emergency assistance. Section 10b indicates that vulnerable person includes someone under the age of 70 who has an underlying health condition, which is further set out in the schedules as including a number of physical health conditions. There does not appear to me to be any reference to non-physical health conditions in the regulations, for example, mental health needs, which might equally make someone a vulnerable person needing care or assistance. Now, I know that the definition in the list of conditions is not a strict definition, but a list of examples of conditions. However, I do wonder about the lack of inclusion, which I think is probably not intentional, but appears to be there nonetheless. And I wonder if in these circumstances that matter could be raised by the committee with the lead committee, perhaps in the note, in a note in the report.
So does the committee agree to note this concern in our report? Agreed. Thank you. Is the committee nevertheless content with both of these instruments?
Yes. Agreed.
Okay. So no points have also been raised on the following draft instruments: the Single-Use Carrier Bags Charge Scotland Amendment Regulations 2020, the Public Services Reform Scotland Act 2010, Part 2 Further Extension Order 2020. The Children and Young People Scotland Act 2014 Modification No. 2 Revocation Order 2020. There have also been no points raised on the following provisional affirmative instrument: the Scottish Landfill Tax Standard Rate and Lower Rate No. 2 Order 2020, being SSI 2020-105. Is the committee content with these instruments? Content. Thank you. Under agenda item 3, we are considering an instrument subject to the negative procedure, Non-Domestic Rates Coronavirus Reliefs Scotland Regulations 2020, being SSI 2020-101. This instrument provides for certain temporary non-domestic rates reliefs intended to counter the adverse economic impact of COVID-19 for the 2020-2021 financial year. The instrument was laid before the Parliament on 26 March 2020 and comes into force on 31st March 2020. This does not respect the requirement that at least 28 days should elapse between the laying of an instrument which is subject to the negative procedure and the coming into force of that instrument. The committee is therefore required, under standing orders, to draw the instrument to the attention of the Parliament under reporting ground J for failing to comply with the requirements of section 28.2 of the Interpretation and Legislative Reform Scotland Act 2010. Does the committee therefore wish to draw this instrument to the attention of the Parliament under the reporting ground J? Thank you. The committee also looks at the Scottish Government's reasons for the breach. which in this case are set out in a letter to the presiding officer received on 26 March 2020. It explains that the Scottish Government wishes the reliefs to come into force before the start of the 2020-21 financial year to provide certainty for businesses as to the rating position and assist local authorities with billing arrangements. Is it, excuse me, is the committee content with the reasons given for the failure to comply with section 28.2?
Yes, content.
Thank you. Agenda item 4 is consideration of instruments subject to no procedure. No points have been raised on SSIs 2020, 85, 86 and 93. Is the committee content with these instruments?
There is one
Oh,
point,
come.
Convener, that I wanted to raise regarding the Act of a Journal Criminal Procedure Scotland Act 1995 Amendment Miscellaneous 2020, which is SSI 2020-93. Now, I understand the reasons why this was brought in at short notice as it was, and why it has been acted upon, and perhaps also why there is no time limit set for its operation in the SSI, or the Act of a Journal. However, I think it would be helpful to contact the Lord Justice General or his office to ask what the provisions are for this SSI being taken out of force once the current emergency or pandemic situation has passed, because that doesn't appear on the face of the Act of a Journal for understandable reasons.
Yeah, thank you. Is the committee content to defer consideration of this instrument to its next meeting, and in the meantime write to the Lord President for a response to these questions? Yeah, thank you. So is the committee content with SSIs 2020, 85 and 86?
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you very much. I now close the meeting.